Are you looking to become a better real estate investor? Then hang on, because you're about to experience another episode of the world's most popular real estate podcast, the BiggerPockets Podcast. But before we get to this week's show, I wanted to invite you to become part of our community, BiggerPockets.com, the real estate investing social network. The membership is free, and you'll instantly gain access to networking opportunities, educational content, investor tools, and more. Sign up now and get a free copy of our book, The Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Real Estate Investing, read by hundreds of thousands of budding entrepreneurs. Just click this link right here or just head to BiggerPockets.com. With that, let's get to the show.
This is the BiggerPockets Podcast, show 117.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everybody? This is Josh Dorkin, host of the BiggerPockets Podcast, here with my co-host, Brandon Turner. What's up, B?
Hey, what's up, Jay? How you doing?
Oh man, I'm good. It's a beautiful snowy winter day here in Denver, and we've got a really kind of a cool and unique show planned today.
We do, yeah. Today is something totally different than people have ever heard before here on the show. We're actually talking to somebody who is not a real estate investor, but he's got.
Nor are they in the real estate business.
Period.
At all.
Yeah.
Not
period. But he is also one of the, I guess, most successful business authors in American history, at least.
The guy's amazing. He's cool. He's funny. He's smart. Did I say he's smart? He's really smart.
Very smart.
Like talking about some kind of cognitive science and all sorts of stuff that fascinating. All right, guys. So listen, today's guest is David Allen. He's the author of Getting Things Done. This book is phenomenal. The GTD, Getting Things Done system, is one that really can help you manage your life, manage your business, manage pretty much anything and everything in your existence. And it's phenomenal. We're honored to have David as a guest, and unfortunately, the show is not as long as we'd like it to be. So, listen up. It's going to be quick, but there's going to be a whole lot of stuff, and we definitely encourage you to get out there and check out his book afterwards. I'm going to pass it off to Brandon here.
Yeah, well, one of the things I did not get to ask him in the show, and I really wanted to, but we were short on time, but was why should somebody get into getting things done? And so instead of asking him, I just actually.
Well, let me ask the question. I mean, Brandon.
Yeah.
I mean, you're somebody who uses getting things done.
Yes.
How does it change your life? How is it affecting you?
All right. So to answer this question, I'm going to read straight out of Getting Things Done, the first paragraph of the book. And here's what it says. Welcome to a goldmine of insights into strategies for how to have more energy, be more relaxed, and get a lot more accomplished with much less effort. If you're like me, you like getting things done and doing them well, and yet you also want to savor life in ways that seem increasingly elusive, if not downright impossible, if you're working too hard. This doesn't have to be an either-or proposition. It is possible to be effectively doing while you are delightfully being in your ordinary workaday world. I love that. That's why getting things done. Get more done, be more happy, less stress, more productive, all those awesome things because of getting things done. And that definitely has happened in my life in the last few years since I read GTD originally. Great stuff. You guys are going to love this.
Yeah, and this has been recommended by a bunch of our guests on the podcast, and really this is a skill that it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, whether you're an investor, an agent, or even if you're not even in the business or in any business. This system can really help you manage your life. So
and get things done.
And get it done. Yeah. Well, with that, why don't we bring on our honored and distinguished guest, Mr. David Allen. All right, David, welcome to the show. It's good to have you.
Yeah, delighted to be here, guys. Yeah.
Great. So David Allen, you wrote the Getting Things Done, the book Getting Things Done, which was one of the best, business books I've ever read. I've talked about it numerous times. We've actually had numerous people on this show recommend the book over and over and over. And this thing came out, 14, 15 years ago, something like that?
01, yeah.
Yeah. So, it originally was published a while ago, but it has this staying power that definitely I want to get into today. But maybe before we do, we can kind of ask you, what's your story? Where are you from? How'd you get to where you are today?
Yeah, well, I grew up in Louisiana, went to school in Florida, got into grad school in Berkeley. So I was in Berkeley 68.
Good time.
Heady time to be there. Figured that ultimately, instead of studying people who were enlightened, I wanted my own. So I hopped off and went and explored God, truth, and the universe for lots of years, doing all kinds of things. And, got into the martial arts, wound up helping a lot of friends of mine start businesses. They had the vision. I was a good number two guy. I just kind of, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I walked in and sort of helped them streamline and become more effective about what they were doing, discovering some common denominators among the sort of entrepreneurs and small business owners that could be improved. And then one day I just hung out my own shingle because I realized they actually paid people to do stuff like that. They call them consultants. So now I are one.
Nice.
And so 1981, I said, okay, crossed my fingers and said, well, how far from bankruptcy can I be? As if you work for yourself, that's kind of, that's always the equation. And never been bankrupt. So, it's been a good ride since then. But of course, I got very hungry to find out what are some great models, because I was just sort of just showing up and winging it. I said there got to be some models to explore. I always loved models. Hey, look, without having to transform yourself as a human being. What if I operate this way? What if I think this way? Do I produce a different result? And long story short, discovered some really powerful techniques for myself first, because I needed them. I always say you teach what you need to learn the most. So I was the most out of control, unfocused guy you ever met. So I needed all the help I could get when I wanted to start to sort of improve my financial and professional circumstances. So I looked for those kinds of things and had some great mentors and began to cobble together what then ultimately 25 years later became GTD, or Getting Things Done. I didn't start 25 years later. It was really 25 years of putting one foot in front of the other and utilizing various different components of what was to then become a whole system for people to utilize. And it always worked without fail. Anybody who sat down and got stuff out of their head, decided sooner than later what it meant, organized the results into effective categories, stepped back and looked at the whole game, always had a greater sense of control and focus. And those are the two elements of self-management. I need to just have things under control, so have stability and traction. And I need to be pointed in the right direction. So it wasn't rocket science in a way, but most people aren't born actually doing those behaviors. Those are actually learned behaviors that you actually have to invest cognitive horsepower to actually do. That they're not a natural or an automatic thing that your brain actually does. So you have to train yourself to do it. So I just discovered what that was. I didn't wake up one morning with the whole model. It was a long string of epiphanettes that then I cobbled together. And then at a certain point, I realized it took me 25 years to figure out that I'd figured out something unique. Nobody else had done it, and that it was totally bulletproof. So I wrote the manual.
Nice.
That's great. And you even came up with your own word, epiphanettes.
Yeah, well, it's kind of what it is. They were little tiny ahas.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, nothing brilliant happens overnight. At least I believe in that. I mean, things like what you've created are the product of your experiences, right? I mean, you're not going to just suddenly wake up and be a genius. There's something that kind of comes together and creates, these experiences that lead to the system. And it's really cool to hear. I mean, you've bounced around. I mean, I was looking at your bio and I mean, the jobs you've held, moped salesman, magician, fascinating.
Yeah, that was age 5. That was the first career. I was Mr. Lazy. I figured if I could, I was always fascinated by how can you utilize the power of something that's invisible, you can't see, to actually make your visible stuff work. So that's why I was attracted to find out, God, if I could just think about something and have it move, that would be really cool. So I've never sort of given up that game. It's just, I got more better, sophisticated ways to sort of carry that, ride that Trojan horse in.
That's funny. I did a magic show for my whole family back when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and made a table out of cardboard, that had little holes in it. And I was pretty cool. All right. Well, moving on. So a lot of our audience are people who are real estate investors or entrepreneurs that are trying to build a real estate business, whether that's flipping, whether they want to be a landlord, want to buy rental property, whatever. But as such, those people are working 2 jobs at once, so to speak, right? They have their day job where they're, stockbrokers, or they're teachers, doctors, lawyers, whatever, and they're trying to start these side businesses. So, before we actually get into the specifics of what Getting Things Done actually is, I mean, maybe can you talk to do you have any good advice for people that are in that kind of state, like where they're trying to do wear so many different hats at one time?
Define all the hats first. You need to make sure you know the templates, essentially, and I use that as a plural, of all the different areas of focus and accountability that you need to manage or maintain at some level. Personally, for instance, your finances, your health, your relationships, your fun, your creativity, your own career development. Those are things you don't finish. Those are things that tend to be the areas that you need to make sure you're watching, that things stay healthy and in balance in terms of the enterprise. And then the same is true with both your current work. You better define what those hats are, because if you're going to leave it, you better leave it in a good shape. So you better know, what are you held accountable to have to be doing well. And then for your own business, you better define what those hats are. What do you need to make sure you do well so that enterprise starts to gets off in a healthy, balanced way? Staff development, finances, admin, or whatever. And you're going to wear all those hats probably to begin with, but it's a good idea to define what they are. Because when you're wearing your finance hat, that's very different than your party PR hat. Yeah. You have to shift gears very fast. So orientation tools, and entrepreneurs and small entrepreneurs and startups, they need that as much as everybody needs it. But those are usually the biggest pain points when you're in a transition and when you're trying to do startup stuff. You need to be able to keep your orientation map. It's kind of like you need to start out in a boat you haven't been in before. You better go down and grab all the maps down in the map room and get them up there and have the ones that you need to see when you need to see them. And you hit something, you better go pull the right map out and go, wait a minute, what I just hit, and where do I need to be? So keeping yourself oriented, that's going to be the biggest challenge.
Hey, David. So, to me, it seems like, we talk to a lot of these real estate investors, on our show. We see them on our website. And one of the things that I seem to notice with them, and I think you probably can say, whether or not this happens across the board with everybody in most businesses, but it seems like people don't put everything down, right? And that's kind of the basis of what you're talking about is, get your life in order by putting your life on paper, essentially. Put it down, plan it, map it, don't keep anything in your brain. Don't run your business and your financial life and your other lives in your head. Run them on a sheet of paper and make sure that you could kind of have something that you could go back to and refer to and glance at. And that'll keep you kind of, as you said, orientated.
Yeah, well, the cognitive scientists now, in the last 20 years, have basically validated this whole methodology. Call it the external brain. It's like putting your keys in the same place, so your brain doesn't have to keep track of where your keys are. That's building an external brain. It's like letting life be able to remind you at the right time, as opposed to your head. Your head is a crappy office. Yeah, it is. You'll be driven by latest and loudest if it's in your head, and I've never seen an exception to that.
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, one of the things that stood out to me when I read Getting Things Done originally back probably 6 years ago now or whatever, the kind of like best, I don't know, in my mind, summary of what I learned was, you mentioned in that book, I think it was somewhere in there, and I'm going to do a terrible job of paraphrasing this, but you said something like, trying to make your brain remember to get milk when you're actually at the store in front of the milk. I mean, that's something that just eats up so much of that brain power continually, right? Like, and so by taking that part out and by letting that external brain be able to manage that part for you. I mean, that's like, when I read that, I'm like, that makes so much sense. Like, this is why I'm so stressed. This is why I get so, I don't know. Like, I used to joke, like, my mind was like a small glass of water, right? And you put a little bit of something in there and something else will come out, because like, I can only take so much. Is that kind of the essential of GTD for you, or how, maybe you can just summarize what is getting things done for people, and what is it? No,
you said it really well. I mean, there are more subtle and sublime components of it as well. I mean, the way you get things done is define what done means and what doing looks like and where it happens. And those, by the way, that's a mouthful. Yeah. What does done mean? Especially if you're trying to get into the real estate business. What does done mean? Yeah. What is that new property? Done means what? You get to mark this off as done when what's true. When the apartment house is on cruise control, when will you know that, right? If you're trying to sell a house, when is this done? When you truly sell it, or when you get to the point that you either decide to sell it or keep it? Yeah. These are subtle things. But again, keeping track of what your work is can be more subtle than it might seem obvious. But you're right; it truly is those kinds of things. You just need to build an external brain, but what's in that brain in terms of the content, that's another story. You need to make sure you have the map, but you better have a good map with all the right data on it. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Like a project list, a list of all of those more than one step things that you're committed to finish or complete within the next year. Very few people have that map, and it's the most important one to have if you're going to keep some sort of operational control in your life. So easily said, keep this stuff out of your head, but it's a lifelong lifestyle process in terms of how do you manage the flow of life's work, which is really what GTD is about, building an ecosystem, if you will, that manages no matter what happens and no matter what surprise or change happens, you have an ankle tether on your surfboard.
How do you define that? So I'm looking at, buying, some 16-unit apartment building, and, what would, how would I go ahead as a listener, right, and define, what is done on that project going to be for me? Is it, like you said, is it getting renters and having it, a manager and having it be stable? Is it, the end all be all 30 years later? Is that done when I've, gotten rid of it? Do I need to really set my goals and say, hey, this is what completion means on any of these things, and these are the alternatives to completion? And kind of keep coming back to those alternatives until something is truly, truly done?
Well, a very simple distinction that helps a lot is, are you sure that you're going to sell it? Are you sure that you're going to set it up? So you always need to give yourself a game you can win. And if you're not sure, because there's still more data, there's still more things to explore, there's still more possibilities that may show up that may make it not something that happens, then I have a shorthand called R&D, research and development. That's my shorthand for look into. So I'm looking into the possibility of this relationship, and then once I get to some place called, I've got closure on this, called there's no way on God's green earth this is worth the money, I quit. I get to mark that off as a successfully done project, because I didn't make the project, to buy it. The project was to get to the point to make a go or no go decision. And once I did that, then but see, a lot of people don't make that subtle distinction. You won't call it a project until you actually say it's going to happen. Like, I got all kinds of projects that I don't know that they're going to happen or not, but I still need to define for myself what am I committed to finish or complete or get to as an end game. So it's terrible to go play soccer without a goal. Now, I know people just go kick the ball around, but it's no fun really unless you got to see a goal down there, and all you need is a goal and the next play. Yeah. So project and next action.
Makes sense.
That's really all the game is about. But I say all the game is about. Almost nobody makes those decisions when things first show up in their world. They make it when things first blow up in their world. So most people are waiting to make those kinds of distinctions when the heat or pressure forces you to. And that decision comes from the limbic or reptilian part of your brain instead of the executive part. And so you ain't going to be that smart if you don't make these decisions on the front end.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's get into the 5 steps of the GTD system. I believe the first is capture. Is that correct?
Yeah, you need to identify what's not on cruise control. In other words, what's got my attention right now? Oh, bank credit line. Oh, we're going to buy a dog, or we're looking into a dog for the kids. You got to, whatever's not on cruise control, that you need to capture, collect, or identify. So that's the first step, is just get the stuff, grab it from out of your head and around your environment, and get a dump list basically. So you create do a mind sweep as we call it. Go get your head empty to begin with.
Are you talking about physically, like take out a piece of paper, do that, or is it something more technological, in nature?
No, any of that. Well, just look around. Say there's whatever's on your desk or around your environment. If you guys look around where you are right now, it's called what doesn't belong there permanently. Got anything that's not anything that's not supplies or reference material or decoration or equipment? Yeah, that means it's in process. And so identifying what's in process. So Joshua, if it's just you, it's called fulfilled destiny as human spirit on planet. You got a project, you got something incomplete there. Understood. So that's actually when we coach people desk side with this stuff, that's the first thing we do is look around your environment. Say what does that tell us? that's not on cruise control. Something's in process, something's incomplete, something's in motion. So pieces of paper would represent that, flashlights with dead batteries in them, Post-it stuck on your screens, all that. Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that. Those are just placeholders for stuff that you need to decide or do something about, right? So we just gather all the physical triggers for that, the icons for that to begin with, and then get what else is in your head that's not in the pile. Because we put all that stuff back in your in basket. First of all, we get you an in basket. It's amazing how many people don't have one. And actually, you all will have an in basket. If you don't have a physical one, then your life is your in basket. So you just need to make it smaller.
When I first did GTD, getting things done, I made that list, like that brain dump, and I spent a good 2 hours on it probably. And I think I had 300 things written down on that list. I mean, it was multiple pages of just stuff that was in here. And I can't tell you the sense of relief when it's all on paper, because all of a sudden it wasn't it wasn't organized yet. We haven't even gotten to that bit, but just getting it out of my head and knowing that I was working on that, it was both overwhelming and it was just amazing.
It creates a combination of grief and relief.
Yeah.
Catharsis.
Yeah, well, what you're looking at is a lot of agreements with yourself unkept, and that's what pisses you off and creates frustration and stress, is not keeping agreements with yourself. But then the reason you get relief right away is you get it out of your head and you go, that's okay, I'm not doing that. You just renegotiated that agreement. Now it's no longer a broken agreement. But in your head has no sense of past or future. That's why it thinks you should have been doing all those all the time until you got it out of your head. It's just the strange way that part of us works. Yeah, so it's actually just a mechanical process. But you're right. What you can't do is sit there and try to organize or prioritize it to begin with. You won't have the freedom to get it all out. And by the way, that's Brandon, that's a typical amount. Usually it takes 1 to 6 hours to get that inventory. And 300, that's on the smaller side.
Wow.
You're a small man, Brandon.
I'm a giant man. I just have a small brain. Different. All right.
Well, you probably didn't open every drawer, every closet, and didn't.
Probably not.
As well.
He's got some sealed closets.
I'm working on that.
Well, what's next, David? Is clarify, yeah?
Yeah. Well, now you got all that stuff out of your head. If I were to coach you desk side, you would have written not one list. You would have written each one of those items on a separate piece of paper, and so they'd all be separate particles now sitting in your in tray. Because then we're going to deal with them one at a time, and it comes out and does not go back into the in tray, and we're going to get your in tray empty. Because now we're going to put that process through the drill of each one of those items. You need to now start to clarify and make some executive decisions about it. Because if you wrote down mom or bank or doctor, that's usually what a to-do list looks like. Yeah. It's like, mom, you probably had one, good historical day. Why'd you write it down? Oh, it's her birthday coming. What are you going to do? I don't know what I'm going to do. That's right. And most people feel crappy about their list because they're still being reminded of decisions and thinking that have not been finished yet about what you need to do. So that's why you need to move this to the next stage. Otherwise, you just become a compulsive list maker, and the stuff still doesn't get out of your head.
Yeah.
So you've got to identify the stuff and then put it into the process and grind it through.
Is this when the next actionable step comes into play?
Correct. First thing is it an actionable item? Yes or no? And if not, you get a lot of non-actionable stuff coming into your email and otherwise. Then you toss it, tickle it, or file it for reference. So those are what you do with those. But the actionable stuff, that's where the key question is. Okay, what's the very next action on this? And if that one action won't finish whatever this is about, what's the project? Yeah. So those become the really critical zeros and ones, essentially, of the thought process is outcome and action. Okay, what's the outcome that you're committed to if more than one step is needed? And that's, I need to, repair this watch. Great, you got a project. What's the next step? Oh, God, I guess I just got to take it to the jeweler. Great, you got an errand. Right, and that's about how long it takes once you get good at this to make these decisions. But those decisions don't show up by themselves.
Yeah. When I read the book, if I had to pick one of the most influential parts of getting things done, I mean, hands down, it was the idea of the next action step. I don't know why nobody explained to me that growing up, why that was not a thing taught in high school. But when that got in my brain and I understood it, my world exploded. Because everything I do now, I mean, Josh can testify to this, right? I say that all the time. well, okay, what's the
He's
next?
very annoying.
What is the next?
I know it's a pain in the butt, isn't it?
I know it is, right? Like, yeah, because otherwise it's like, okay, well, what's your goal in life, right? Like, I want to flip a house, right? Like people say, I want to flip a house. Okay, well, what is the next actionable step to do that? Well, I'm going to flip a house. No, that is not an actionable next step. What's the next actionable step? It might be picking up a book to go read it. It might be getting in your car, maybe drive around. I mean, maybe you could get more specific than that. It might be you go find your keys so you can get in your car to go drive around. I don't know, like how detailed you think people should get, but yeah, that concept just, I mean, one of the most influential things in my life. So I'll publicly say thank you for that. Oh, good.
Me too. Hey, and I didn't make that up. I was trained by a mentor of mine who taught me that, who had uncovered that technique working with executives that were so frustrating that they get hung up on stuff. And he finally got frustrated with them that they wouldn't decide about something. He just started picking stuff up and saying, what's the very next action on this? And he watched magic happen.
Yep.
So he built that into a whole process, part of a process of organizational change. But when I worked with Dean, and I credit him in the book, that was such a powerful thing to learn. We're not born doing it.
Yeah. Love
Makes
it.
sense. Makes sense. Well, so from there, we've got the next actionable step.
Yeah.
We've got this big fat list of all these things, and we've got the next actionable step, but we've got all this other junk too, right? So now what do we need to do?
Well, once you make the decision about what stuff means, you just park it where those things go. If it's reference, you put it where reference is. If it's trash, you trash it. If it's stuff that I can't decide yet, I'll decide in 2 weeks, you need to park it someplace that in 2 weeks you'll see it. Now, if it's an action step, first of all, if you can take the action step in 2 minutes or less, do it right then instead of organize it. That's the 2-minute rule.
I love that too.
Yeah,
that's worth
great.
its weight in gold. If people listening to this, that's the only thing you get out of this. If you haven't built that habit already, it's worth listening to me for 10 hours. No, come on. It'll give you an extra 6 months to your life if you do the 2-minute rule. Yeah. Now, if it takes longer than 2 minutes to do it, then you need to ask yourself, can I give this to somebody else to do? And that's the delegate step. If you can, ideally do it right then. And then what you need to organize is something on a list called waiting for. What am I waiting on to come back now for something I've delegated? And you'll need to then organize that reminder and trigger. But if it's something that takes longer than 2 minutes and you have to do the action, that's what you then need to organize into some reminder of lists of actions you need to take. Phone calls you need to make, errands you need to run, stuff to talk to your life partner about, stuff to talk to your banker about, things you need to buy at the hardware store, stuff you need to do at your computer. And that's then, most people have over 150 of those next actions. So getting those organized in some coherent place so that you see them when you need to see them. And back to your point, Joshua, so I don't have to think of the milk, when I'm there where the milk is. Oh, yeah. Brandon, sorry. Yeah. One of you guys. But you need to just park this stuff out there. So that's then becomes a lot of the major content of your external brain. Yeah. And then those become, for the most part, just lists. But you could keep stuff in a folder. You could keep stuff in a digital list. You could keep it in a paper-based planner. Any of that works as long as you've got all the right content in there, as well as a list of all the projects that are driving many of those actions. Yeah. So that's the organized piece, is just parking these things where they belong. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's like, duh. I don't want to have to keep rethinking what to do on it. I've decided that. I just need to pick up the list and then use that as an orientation map about what to do.
Hey,
so that's
David,
that's the organized phase. Yep.
Sorry about that. I think Brandon was the one who brought this to me at some point. The 2-minute rule, he took it and he's like, Josh, you know what? I'm going to start applying it to food. And we talked about this. It was a couple of years ago. And ever since he told me about that, I started applying it. And it's amazing because you go to a restaurant, you sit there, you got a menu of all these items, and you literally sit and perseverate about it. And like, what am I going to do? And you could look at a menu for 20 minutes. Pick something, decide, and do it. I mean, that 2-minute thing is so powerful. It's so powerful. And you apply it to every other part of your life, and it's amazing.
Well, actually, one of the reasons it's so amazing is it actually starts to implicitly train you to think, what's the next action?
Yeah.
It actually starts to put you in the driver's seat and give you training in the executive thinking function. So there's more to it. There's more to it than meets the eye.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, we covered capture, clarify, and organize. Fourth, we got, I think, reflect. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, even if you got everything out of your head, decided all the stuff you need to do about it, park it in the right places, if you don't look at it, it'll all crawl back up in your head anyway. Yeah. So the paradox is you actually have to use your mind to shut your mind up. In other words, you actually have to look at this stuff and say, okay, that'll wait. Oh, that won't. And then in order to be able to have your mind be quieted about all the stuff you're not doing, you better keep reviewing everything you're not doing on some consistent enough basis to feel okay about what you are doing. and what you're not doing. And that doesn't happen by itself. You actually have to then engage in a reflection process and a review process. I need to step back, take a look at the bigger picture. Let me see all the 16 phone calls I need to make instead of just being driven by the one I remember to make.
Yeah. Because I think one of the things you talk about is your stress is caused from when you don't trust the system and you don't trust what you've set up. So you could do the first 3 steps of here, but if you don't trust it and have a system for reflecting on that, you're just going to be just as stressed because then your brain's constantly worried about not accomplishing those things.
Sure. Well, you need to see the inventory of what's in there, and you need to keep that inventory current. That's why, as you guys know, the core key success factor for getting in control and focused is the weekly review. Yeah. For the most people listening to this, that's probably the thing they're doing the least and the thing they need to do the most if they're going to surf on top of this confusing, ever-changing, surprising world that they're trying to create. And that means once a week you better close the door and for 2 hours pull up the rear guard, sit down and get your list current, clarify what's shown up in the last little while, get your head empty again, get all this stuff current. I mean, come on, life happens much too fast for all of us to stay, totally pristine and clean all the time, but you'd better not let it go too long. I don't take a shower 24 hours a day, but I don't go longer than a day.
That's cool. Yeah. Every Sunday night is my weekly review. I do it every Sunday, and it totally makes my entire week and everything in my life easier. I think that Sunday night review is just fantastic. So love it.
Sure. Yeah, good for you. Yeah.
It requires, but it's a commitment. I think a lot of people are going to stop and say, hey, I really need to be committed. I got to sit for an hour and go through everything I did, does that work?
Yeah. Yeah. Does it work not to?
No.
Yeah, of course not. Nothing's free, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a lot cheap. It's a lot cheaper than you think. It'll be the best hour or 2 hours you spend that week.
I agree.
Agreed.
Come on. Anybody got favorite sports teams out there? How much are there?
Seahawks,
Mets.
Okay, the Seahawks.
I got losers. I got the Knicks. I got the Mets. They all suck.
Yeah. Well, I don't care whether they suck or they're winners. How much of their work week do you think they spend planning for their work?
Good point.
That is
right. Point. So if you spent 7 hours of your day reviewing and reflecting, your last hour is going to be hot.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
And if you don't spend any time, you're just going to fumble around and be driven by latest and loudest. So,
I love it.
You decide.
A lot of us just kind of go through the day based on our inbox, and it's a bitch.
Yeah. We all can do that too. The idea is you don't want to be too anal about this, but right. the smaller your backlog of unprocessed stuff, the more then you can take surprise and interruptions, not as interruptions, but as just new input. But if you got 3,000 unprocessed emails, anything's going to feel like a bitch that lands in your world. If it's clean, my inbox is, every 24 to 48 hours is pretty much zeroed out all over, which means that when new stuff comes in, I'm not disturbed by that's disturbing my world. I can evaluate it against all the other stuff I've got to do and, make smarter decisions about whether to do it or placehold it.
Yeah.
So keeping your backlog as zeroed out as possible makes life a lot easier.
Makes sense. Well, we're running out of time here. Let's get to the last step, which is, I believe, engage. Yes?
Yep. Last step is, okay, now where do you point your attention and your resources based upon all that? So the best practice of the stage 5 is to have done the best practices of the first 4 stages, captured, clarified, organized, and reviewed everything so that then when you decide whether to take a nap or have a beer or call the bank, that's an intuitive judgment call that you trust as opposed to, I hope this is the thing to do.
Yeah.
That's really where you want to get to.
So how does somebody avoid the shiny object syndrome of wanting to suddenly, every time something new and exciting kind of pops into their head, jump and do that? And not put that at the top of the list.
Do all this stuff and then snack on email as fun.
I like it.
I don't ever find email to be fun.
Don't stop. There's nothing wrong with it. Come on, that's how I created my life, is banging around and following bright baubles. I just needed to make sure I did enough of the basic stuff so that, it's kind of hard to make the distinction between following a bright bauble that's a good intuitive hit versus following a bright bauble as a way to avoid something else I should be doing. So how well do you know yourself?
That makes sense. Yeah. And we have that all the time at our company. Brandon and I every day come up with 25 new ideas.
Yeah.
And it's just we then immediately go through them and say, oh, you know what? We've got a later list, we've got a possible list, and we've got all these things that we throw them in there, and you get to them or you don't, and they're out of your head and you're done.
Well, you're most creative when you have the space to make a mess.
Yeah.
The problem is if you're in a mess, you can't make one. So that's why when I'm not doing anything else, I'm cleaning up. because I'm getting ready for the next surprise that I can't see, and I want to have the freedom to make a mess when it shows up and deal with whatever I need to deal with in that way.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
great.
Well, before we wrap up, I guess my last kind of question here is, for all the things we talked about today, what would you say is probably the most important that people should leave this, conversation with? Like, what do you want people to know if you could just sum everything up?
that a revised version of GTD brought up to 2015 is launching March 17th in the US. So
Nice.
that's what they should know, because that's what
Nice
they need
plug.
Yeah.
That's what they need to go get.
Cool.
And basically, and it's going to do is that you're going to hear the Greek chorus going, "Your head is for having ideas, not for holding them."
I love it.
That's great.
I love it.
great.
And that's about the time that this is coming out, this podcast. So that's good timing.
Perfect.
Hey.
Cool. Good deal. All right. Well,
Gonna do famous.
Yeah, why
Knock it
don't-
out really quick?
you-
You have 2 minutes for our famous four.
Sure.
all right. So these questions we ask every guest, and we tweak them a little bit for you. The first question, normally we ask, what are your favorite real estate books? But since you're not, I don't think anywhere, you're not a real estate investor, right?
No.
All right. So I tweaked it a little bit to
You
just
should
say,
be, by the way.
Yeah, you
listen
should
to
be.
the BiggerPockets podcast. You might pick up a thing or two.
but we're going to tweak this a little bit to go, I'm going to say, what is your favorite business or productivity book besides your own? Like, do you have any book recommendations you'd like people to read?
I have two brand new ones because they're hot on my mind, and they have a lot to do with what we've been talking about. And they're both aggregations of cognitive science research that have shown up and they're both great manuals for your brain and how it works and how it doesn't work. The first is called The Organized Mind by Dan Levitin, Levitin. The second one is called Brain Chains, 2 words, chains as in chains around your brain that are keeping you from being optimally productive. And that's by Theo Compernole, Compernole. They are fabulous, and they are going to say, "Oh, my external brain, no kidding." And those are I've there's a gazillion books I could have picked, but those are hot right now in my brain, and I'm recommending them to anybody who has ears to hear for that. You can get them both on Amazon and all those kind of places.
Cool.
That's great.
Love
and
it.
we'll link to those in our show notes.
Yeah.
What about hobbies? What do you do for fun, David?
I do ikebana flower arranging, and what I most like to do for fun is walk with my wonderful wife Catherine and my gorgeous little Cavalier King Charles Spaniel around Amsterdam doing nothing, and just enjoying the charm of a magical city. Good food and wine. We're foodies. I love that stuff, those are it.
Cool.
That's great. And really quick, why did you end up relocating to Amsterdam?
We fell in love with the city. It's the San Francisco of Europe, and it's kind of edgy and it's really fun and just intuition. And we wanted a kind of a lifestyle change and get out of U.S. centricity in terms of our perspectives. So, somewhere in Europe, could have been pretty much anywhere, but we'd been to the city 2 or 3 times and absolutely loved it. So, and we still love it. We've been here 10 months, and it's a fabulous place.
That's great.
Yeah,
That's
very
great.
cool. Very cool. All right. Well, what do you believe sets apart successful people, whether it's entrepreneurs, investors, business owners, from those who give up, fail, or can never seem to get started?
People who relax and go inside to listen to the still small voice of who they really are, and do the best they can to keep listening to that and paying attention to it.
I like it. That's great.
Deep.
Yeah.
Deep. Yeah.
All right, Josh, you want to end it?
Yeah.
Final?
So where can people find out more about you? I'm sure you've got a website. I know you've got the book. We plug that, but where can they find you?
Gettingthingsdone.com.
Fabulous. All right, David. Well, listen, thank you so much. This has been really, really interesting. And to everybody listening, we definitely recommend you go and pick up a copy of Getting Things Done. It's definitely a great book. And there's all sorts of really cool systems that people have, built software and all sorts of stuff just to try and help you run your life through this Getting Things Done system. And there's different ways to do it. And, we recommend you guys get out and explore it. But David, thank you so much for being on the show. We really, really do appreciate it.
Hey, Joshua, Brandon, my pleasure. It was fun.
All right, thanks.
Take care. All right, guys, that was David Allen. I don't know about you, but I'm about to start making some lists. I've got lots of lists, but I'm about to make more. I don't know. I just want to do it.
Go do your brain dump. I think that's the next actionable step, right?
There you go.
Go do your brain dump.
Go to your brain dump.
It really is a fan. Like, I was not just like, blowing smoke. I mean, like, it really like changed my life was doing that list of just writing everything down. Like, there's this like peace you get, like, I'm actually taking care of this stuff. And he explained why that is, right? Like, you're renegotiating with yourself on, I will get these things done. And here's a process and a system for getting them done. I love it.
Yeah. Well, think about it. The average person is thinking about like, hey, I've got that doctor's appointment. Hey, it's so-and-so's birthday.
Yep.
Hey, I've got 72 things on my job that I need to do. I've got my job. I've got my real estate business. How do you organize that? You can't just keep it all in your head. You have to get it out. You really, really do. Yeah. And this whole system is a great way to do that. So again, big thanks to Mr. Allen for coming on the show.
And like I was going to say, like he said, the book is now out. When this show comes out, this book is officially relaunched in America right now, the 2015 updated version. So I will be picking up a copy of that. We're recording this beforehand, but it'll be out by the time this recording is. And I'm excited to read the new and expanded updated version. So pick up a copy of that. We will have a link to it in the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show116.
Yes. And as for you guys, next actionable step, go and make a list, go brain dump. And then at the top of that brain dump, should be something that says jump on BiggerPockets and share what you thought about this episode on the show notes at biggerpockets.com/show116. We'd love to hear what you guys thought. So with that, thanks so much for listening. We definitely appreciate it. And we hope you enjoyed, and we'll look forward to talking to you next week on the BiggerPockets podcast. I'm Josh Dorkin, signing off.
You're listening to BiggerPockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.